You're used to seeing a session of the UK Parliament opened by the monarch. It's an annual tradition. Much rarer is when the same monarch, who's head of the Commonwealth, crosses the Atlantic and makes that speech before the Canadian Parliament. Charles doing so, the first since his mother did it in 1977, reading the words of the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Charles, with his presence already denoting the distinction between Canada and its neighbor to the south in times where Donald Trump has taken aim at the Canadians.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War.
Well, for more, let's go to Toronto. Adam Chapnick is a foreign and public policy analyst, professor of defense studies at the Royal Military College of Canada. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There we saw Charles reading that speech with, in the frame you saw the author, the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Your thoughts, first of all, on just the fact that Charles is in Ottawa?
Well, there are a few things going on there. Mr. Carney is trying to demonstrate both to Canadians and to those who didn't vote for him that he has connections to the world, that when he speaks to international leaders, they respond. He invited the King to come give this speech in Canada. The King's health is not great. It's a big trip for less than 48 hours, and yet the King came. So it's a demonstration there that the Prime Minister himself has influence in the world. And it's a reminder to President Trump that the King of Canada is someone that the President actually admires quite a bit. It's a reminder to Canadians about their history. I think it ticks a lot of boxes for Prime Minister Carney all at the same time.
All right, and the speech written by the new Prime Minister. Adam, let me ask you, as King of Canada, is it a request Mark Carney poses directly to Charles, or does he have to go through Keir Starmer?
He does not have to go through Keir Starmer, but he does have to go through the palace in the United Kingdom. And a good ally would, of course, let the British government know what was going on. My sense is that the British government was not nearly as excited about the King coming as Canadians were. The British government has its own challenges with the United States and has every reason to worry about what it can't control when the King comes to Canada. At the same time, the King has quite a fondness for Canada. He even mentioned that in his speech because the King does get to write a few lines at the beginning and at the end. And I believe the King did want to come and to show some support for Canada at a time when many Canadians, as you suggested and the speech suggested, are feeling quite threatened by the state of the world today.
Feeling quite threatened, was it, watching the spectacle unfold, a moment of unity?
I think for a brief moment it probably was. You aren't actually allowed to clap and applaud during a throne speech, and yet there was some applause towards the end when the King spoke about a strong and free Canada. So I think there was at least a moment where Canadians were joining together in support of the sovereignty and the unity of our state. We have some challenges here on all of those fronts, but we had at least a moment there where we stood together.
And the King, who also in that speech, talking up again the issue of values, talking about the rights of welcoming immigrants. Again, all these seem to be allusions to Donald Trump. How will it go when Trump confers with Mark Carney? We don't know yet if there's a confirmation or not if Trump is coming to Alberta for the G7.
From what we've been told, the most recently, the president will indeed come to Alberta for the G7 summit. So that seems to be, at least for now, on, which is good news. I don't think there was anything in this speech to cause President Trump to take real offense. There were certainly allusions made, but the words themselves spoke about Canada and Canada's resilience, Canada's strengths. If someone chooses to make comparisons, to read in comparisons to the United States, they can. But there was no deliberate provoking of the bear or poking of the bear taking place here. So I don't see this speech as risky in any way, particularly since the president likes the monarchy and is probably more inclined to give the king the benefit of the doubt in a situation like this.
Please stay with us, Adam. We're going to cross over to Ottawa and our correspondent, Christopher Gully. Christopher, again, 1977, the last time that the king made the trip to the building behind you.
Well, it wasn't the king, it was his mom, Queen Elizabeth II. And the previous time was in 57, so she read the throne speech twice within 20 years. But you're right, the last time was 1977. And there's never been a king who has read the speech from the throne. And it was an interesting speech because he began very personal, and he cleverly, masterfully slid into the government's agenda without skipping a beat. It was interesting also that he ended on a personal note. There's great affection. There was a round of applause when he said at the end that Canada has shown that it's the true north, strong and free.
And Christopher, when we listened in earlier in the newsroom, we noted that, and we know this from before, you know, when it's Canada, it's bilingual. You have to read in both French and English, and his French is he definitely knows what he's reading. He is good at speaking French.
Yeah, absolutely. His mom was quite fluent as well. And I was watching him read the speech, and he was casually like flipping through a catalog. I think he almost memorized it because there were times when he was turning the page and he was still speaking. And there was no teleprompter. So I think that the speech was, although crafted by the Prime Minister's office in Canada, I'm almost certain that King Charles had a hand in it at the end, that he signed off on it and added, as I mentioned, certainly the front end of the speech and the back end.
Adam Chapnick was mentioning to us how he's not been in good health of late, reminding us of that. How did he seem to you, Christopher?
Yeah, I was sitting with some colleagues from the UK who traveled with him and will be returning with him. Yes, he is suffering from cancer. His gait is a little awkward. It's a remarkable performance for someone who's essentially on a 24-hour trip. Like, he arrived in Ottawa on Monday at 1 o'clock our time. He will be leaving Ottawa 1 o'clock our time today. So 24 hours. And during that time, he's gone to Lansdowne Park, this public space, met a lot of people, planted a tree at the residence of the Governor General, his representative in Canada. The throne speech, as I speak to you, he's at the War Memorial. So for a fellow who's 76 years old, who suffers from cancer, it's showing physically just by his gait, his posture, but you try to keep up with that stamina. Plus, there's jet lag. I mean, there were young journalists who were suffering from jet lag who are half his age.
Let me turn to Adam Chapnick, because for Mark Carney, it's, as you were saying at the outset, Adam, a bit of a coup, getting the monarch to return for the first time since 1977. With the trade tensions, which once the plane is in the air again and Charles is back en route to London, will still be there with the United States. How does he get from here to that G7?
I think that it sounds like behind the scenes, Americans and Canadians are now talking. I mean, the American ambassador to the United States has said that this whole idea of the 51st state is over. He said it repeatedly. That doesn't mean the president won't bring it up again, but it means that Canadians have said we're not interested, and America recognizes that, which gives space to the diplomats and officials on both sides to start talking about what some sort of bilateral agreement focused on both economics and defense might look like. From where I sit, my hope is that Mexico is somehow involved in this, because two heads negotiating with the United States is usually better than one. For now, though, it seems that we are speaking to the Americans, and as long as there is no surprising eruption, things should continue calmly as they've been for the last little while until that G7. Now, admittedly, the president is quite unpredictable, and you don't know what he might say next, but there aren't any obvious big roadblocks between now and that meeting in Alberta.
And one final question. We've talked about how the king is doing. How about how the new Prime Minister is doing? Remember that Mark Carney, even though he's a known figure, had been the governor of the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, this is his first elected office with this recent election.
The Prime Minister himself seems to be performing quite well. The challenge is that he has a new ministry, and he hasn't managed to staff up the political officials around that ministry that quickly. So there have been some ministers who have made some comments not entirely consistent with the government line that's taken the government away from its key message. The Prime Minister has had challenges finding a permanent chief of staff, which he's now put off until the summer. So he's had some of these problems that you tend to have when you're not experienced in politics, but his ability to govern and to lead seems to be on schedule and proceeding as planned right now.
Adam Chapman, I want to thank you so much for being with us from Toronto. Christopher Gulley, our correspondent, covering that King's speech, the opening of the Canadian Parliament from Ottawa. Thank you for being with us here.